Yes.
Ex.
Yes.
Okay, Beau Eckstein with us here today. I'm Justin Chamness. This is Real Estate Wholesalers Club, and this is the Saturday edition of the Shut Up Money Show, where we're all about helping you get to that next level. And, buddy, today we are going to do that for sure. We like to expand your mind here and your horizons a little bit. You know, Real Estate Wholesalers Club is full of people who are trying to get to their first deal or maybe get a rhythm with getting deals. And a lot of people in our club here want to grow and develop beyond just doing a wholesale deal, right? So they want to grow and develop into having a portfolio or investing in multifamily properties or what have you, being fix and flippers. Okay, sometimes that's a goal, and they have zero experience with being a contractor and zero experience with managing a contractor team. But that's so the Saturday edition of the Shut Up Money Show we do every week. We bring on guests sometimes to help expand people's minds and their horizons and to give them some exposure to some really great people in our industry that are doing some really incredible things. Today, Michael Batista has brought a guest, and I want to say welcome, Michael Batista, but Beau Eckstein, right?
Got it. Yes.
Got it, man. I'm sorry, dude. Beau Eckstein, formerly from the San Francisco Bay Area, now transplanted to Henderson County, Las Vegas. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the Shut Up Money Show.
Thank
Glad you're
you.
here today.
Thanks for having me.
Michael, welcome to you, dude. And welcome to everybody else that's in the Zoom room. If you want to be in the Zoom room, you can be. Visit www.zoomjustin.com. The password is money if it asks for one. Okay. Throw some money at the screen and it'll let you in. I'm just teasing. Uh, so how's it going? What's the weather like out there in Las Vegas right now, Beau?
It's good. It actually, most people don't know, but during the wintertime, it gets pretty cold. I mean, compared to California. Um, it's probably, I mean, it's not cold from your standards where you live, but I would say it's probably
Your
right.
coffee today, dog.
It's about probably 50 degrees right now. It's probably 50 to 55 today, the weather, so it's kind of
That's
cold.
perfect.
It's not like the summer where it's 120 degrees during the summer. So
Right.
we got to
I,
shift.
I got married in Vegas by Elvis Presley. And the only downside to it was I was sweating balls, man, just like soaked. It was disgusting. But yeah, what an awesome place. And so you've been there about a year, right?
Yeah, I have I've had a place out here since 2014. Originally, um, in Nevada, it's actually what we call a brick and mortar state. So to be licensed here as a mortgage originator, you have to
I see.
live here. So in
I
other
see.
states, you could be licensed in multiple markets and not have to live there, but Nevada is different. It's very difficult here.
So, Beau, can you give us a snapshot of your business today?
Sure. California real estate broker, Nevada salesperson, licensed as a mortgage originator, um, managing director of a group called Pace Equity, where we do a lot of large construction financing projects throughout the nation. And then I also have my own debt platform, so I help newbie investors and I help really experienced investors get funding nationwide. And on top of that, I'm building a website called findthebank.com, which is gonna it's a basically a platform to connect borrowers to local community and credit unions. Because as we get deeper in the conversation, there's like 12,000 banks, credit unions, but most people don't know about these localized banks, credit unions, which sometimes offer the best financing deals for your particular needs. So I realized that was fractured. So my friend's an app developer, so we're developing that, and we're going to launch that in about 30 days. So I'm excited for that. I got a lot of flipping experience, and then I stumbled into the South Bend, Indiana market and started buying properties there. I prefer to buy cheap properties. So I buy properties in the Midwest for anywhere from $9,000 to $40,000. But I've also flipped super expensive houses in San Francisco. On top of that, in 2014, I was on a house flipping television show on HGTV called Flip It to Win It. And I didn't ask for it, but I happened to get on. We did 12 episodes. I learned how fake TV is, but it was a good experience for exposure. And so, anyways, that's about me in a nutshell. Prior to that, I've been investing in and been in real estate for 20 years, and I learned the hard way in 2007 when the mortgage meltdown happened. I owned a lot of properties at that time, got wiped out in my mid 20s, and had a lot of failures and successes, and we've been in a kind of an uptick market for a long time. So I always advise investors to just pay attention to the market and buy for the right reasons.
So where did you start, Beau? I mean, did you start like a lot of people with a little bit of money, or no money, or a lot of money, or no experience, no training, no mentor, no coach? No, how did you get going?
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to be like a mortgage broker when I was 20 years old. So I learned like how to finance like real estate. And then I sold real estate. I never really loved to sell real estate, or, it just wasn't my passion, but it's good to like learn the fundamentals of real estate. But when I started after the downturn and I got wiped out, lost a lot of houses, sold what I could, right? Because property values dropped by like 50%, 60% in some of the markets I own
Yeah,
real estate in
yeah.
2007,
I
8.
got hammered too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been around for a while. Um, but then when I came back, I basically, had an early midlife crisis, and it was like, okay, I have no money. I have screwed up credit. I have to start back over. You kind of feel like a failure. I was lucky that it happened to me in my 20s, though, right? Versus somebody that it happens to you in the
Yeah.
50s, 60s. It's a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
easier because a lot of this comes down to mindset, right? It's all about mindset, because really you don't need money, you don't need anything. You just need a little bit of, uh, you know, intellectual capital to put deals together and to
Right.
wholesale and stuff. So basically, on the comeback tour, what happened is I happened to meet a gentleman that was a partner in a small fix and flip fund in the Bay Area, and I started originating deals for this fund. And like 6 months in, I'm like, God, these people that are flipping these houses, they're not that sharp. And if they can do it, I can do it. And so really what I did initially, because like I said, I had, bad credit at the time, no money, and I had to
Yeah.
so so I said, okay, well, let's put together some pieces. So I put together a contractor that was a partner who would do things at cost and get a percentage of the profit, and then a money partner. And then
Oh, I
since I had a
love
little
that.
bit of
I love that
financing
model.
background, we learned how to put the pieces together. So I'd
Mm.
go into these deals with no money. Granted, I'd have to split them three ways, right? So if we had $100,000 profit, 33,000, 33, 33, but that's good with no money. And plus it limits your risk. So I went in, we did that over and over and over again, and had a lot of success doing it that way. Partnerships usually,
So
it's like
you
a
were
50.
brave enough to leave money on the table. That's the key. You said, hey, I want a piece of this pie. I don't need the whole pie. And we talk about that here too. But I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
I love
you,
that.
yeah, you got to open up your mind if you want funding. And so over the years, just structuring these deals, you kind of learn all the creative ways to fund deals, right? Because you can invest in real estate with zero money. I did it all the time, right? So I can give you a lot of examples on how to do that if you're interested. I can give you, you know, we could talk about burring properties. We could talk about anything you guys want to hear about, but I've done pretty much most of them. I'm not a big subject to investor or like a lease option investor. Those models fascinate me. And what I always recommend to investors is like learn all these strategies, right? Because all these
Mm.
strategies are going to teach you. And then when you get a deal, which tool to pull out. Maybe it's a good subject to deal. Maybe it's a good lease
Right.
option deal. Maybe it's a,
Right.
and so we got to learn all these strategies and continually learn how to put these deals together. So when a deal comes by that somebody might pass on because they don't think there's equity in the deal, it might be a great subject to deal. So I'm not an expert in those. So that's where I'm, learning those strategies, but I'm always around that kind of stuff. But
Man,
typically,
there's a lot to learn out. There's a lot of strategies, isn't there?
yeah, yeah. But typically, like breaking it down from a simple perspective, I'll just walk you through a deal. All right. So, I have a lead generation website in Indiana. I might get a motivated seller lead that comes in, connect with them, probably usually via text. It seems like you can get deals done easy on text, because you don't have to talk. But obviously, it's good to get on the phone too and be good on the phone. But anyways, negotiate a few years back, negotiated this deal in Indiana. And I still remember, first of all, if they're coming to a website to fill out that they want to sell a property, they're motivated. There's motivation. And so I ended up, he had bought the property for his son that was going to school there. The son no longer lived in the area. And so, he wanted $34,000 for this house. And even at 34,000, it was a good deal. But it looked like it could rent for 1,100 or so per month. And the ARV was there. So essentially I negotiated the deal down to $22,000, and they needed 12,000 to get it rent ready. And the way I would attack these deals is I learned about self-directed IRAs, right? Like if you build your financial friend network. So I called my buddy Adam and I said, Adam, when you fund this deal, I'll give you 10% and 2 points and you get a first lien on the property. I'm buying it for 22. I'm putting in 12 and it's worth 60 when I'm done with it. And he's got a lot of money because he's a tech guy. And 34 grand to him is kind of like a little bit of money. So he funded the deal. He lent me the purchase plus the rehab. So I have no money in the deal, right? I fixed the property up. It's relatively easily fixed for 12 grand, just get it good enough for renters.
Yeah.
Ended up renting it out for 12.50 a month. At the end of the year, the tenants moved out, and I was doing a lot of rehabs at the time, and I saw that I could sell it. I ended up selling it for 85K after a year. So I got all the income on the rent side, then sold it. Plus, it was a long term
There you
after
go.
12 months. But those type of deals can be done all day long with none of your own money, right? And so, the strategy I really like if you're looking to buy, fix, and hold properties is to build a financial friend network, because a lot of these cheap properties, what you'll find is there isn't hard money for that, because a lot of these institutional funds don't want to make little $30,000 loans. So what I look
Right.
to do is get a asset that I can buy and fix up, and then the ARV is around 75 minimum, because then you can get a portfolio loan when you're on the when you're going to refinance the property later down the road. And then you pay off your investor, then you recirculate his money on the next deal, right? Because he's happy because he's got 12% or 10% and 2 points. So if you're spending his money twice in a year, his actual returns are like 14% or so, right? Because he's getting the points, he's getting the interest. So it's a win-win for everybody. So I like that structure a lot. So I do that on and then on a flip structure, if you're flipping properties or looking to flip properties, most of the institutional I've done tons of, as a lender, I've done tons of fix and flip loans. And here's what we look for. What's your credit score? How many flips have you done in the last 36 months? How many rentals do you own? What's the purchase price? What's the rehab budget? What's the ARV? That's pretty simple. That's
Right.
it's pretty simple. And now they're giving money away. So they're giving you 80 to 90% of purchase and 100% of repair costs. As long as the gross loan amount does not exceed 70% of the finished value. So take the finished value times
Sure.
70%.
What
That's the gross loan amount.
what happens if it does exceed
You,
that 7? You just disqualify it, or how does that work
you would have to
with you
come in
guys?
with more. You would come in with more capital. So you would have to come in with more money.
Okay.
So typically, as a
Okay.
newbie,
So you
yeah,
fund the gap. You need to fund that. It's a 73, 75. You just come in and fund that 3 or 5% on top of your down.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Gotcha. That makes
So
sense.
so typically, if you're a new investor and you have no experience, I would, let's just say you called me, I'd run you through the spiel. Okay, I have no experience, but I have, a 680 credit score. Here's the property I'm buying. Here's the rehab budget. Here's the ARV with the comps. And typically on your first deal, you're probably going to be at like an 80 or 80, probably an 85% of purchase and 100% of the repair costs. When they fund the repair costs, though, it's held back in escrow. They don't give you the money for
Okay.
construction. You're
Right.
you're funded on progression.
Yeah, draws, right?
Right.
Draws, exactly.
Draws. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the idea is, hey, if I'm a new investor, I see all this money hit my account, all of a sudden I disappear. Is that kind of the? Well, I guess it protects the, the lenders and everything like
Well,
that.
the contractor too. I mean, the
Yeah.
contractor can run away with the whole thing. You know, I mean, if he had it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's
I like
definitely
that.
security
I like
for
that.
the lender, the draw
Yeah.
system. What is it, a standard 4-draw system?
No, you can have, usually pay per draw. They come out and do an extra physical inspection, typically most. I mean, each fund has a little bit different caveat, but most of them that are large and national, they'll go out and they have a third party inspection company that actually comes out and does a draw inspection. And it usually
Nice.
it usually costs you about 260 a draw. So you
Wow.
kind of want to leave those as low as possible. You don't want to do a ton
That's
of
pretty
draws.
reasonable, though. I've seen 350, $400 a draw, so that's actually pretty reasonable, all things considered.
Yeah.
And so you guys, you hire specifically a company that works with lenders that does like draws, or do you just call up an inspecting company who just verifies the work? Like what's the difference there?
Sure. So yeah, most of the national funds, they usually work with 1 or 2 draw inspection companies they already have relationships with. So they just send over the budget and all that stuff, in advance. And then when the draws come, they get the draw request, because when you guys are requesting a loan, part of the loan submission process is you're going to do a line item budget of your construction, right? So you're saying the rehab's 30 grand, you're going to break that down in like, usually it's an Excel or a Word document where you line item and then it's tallied up. I'm going to do demo, painting, electrical. And so then when the inspector comes out, he funds on a percentage of completion for those items. So
Exactly. Yeah.
So one of the big tips I always say is make sure you have capital, even though, you might be stretching the deal. You need money to get the project ramped up in the beginning, because you're not getting a draw until you make progress.
Yeah, till like maybe 10, 20, 25% of the deal is rehabbed. Then you get it's almost like a reimbursal draw. And then
Correct.
the last draw is held until a final inspection walkthrough by the appraiser, probably, I'm guessing.
Well, no, yeah, typically when you're done, and you got, it's done, you just call for a draw. We don't necessarily need like a sign off from the, even if it's a city where you need sign off from the city for permits, that's not we just need to see that it's done.
Sure.
And then that you have funded everything and everything's complete, and you get your last draw.
Sorry to, just derail the conversation with this minutia. I mean, we kind of dove into like one aspect of what you were talking about, but you were walking us through, and thank you so much for being here today, Beau. You can tell just today's the first time I've met you, Beau. I'll just be honest with everybody out there. And I can tell in the first 30 seconds, this dude is smart. Okay. Yeah. So I really appreciate what you're sharing with us here today. And it's an honor to meet you. I did look you up on Google, and man, you've got quite a legacy that you've built. So it's an honor to have you here. And, but I don't want to derail the conversation. You're telling us about a new person and the fix and flip. You weren't done with that, were you?
No.
Okay.
So let's just say you have decent credit, but the problem is you still don't have that down payment, right? So that's a problem, right? Like, how are you going to get that down payment? Most of the lenders that are institutional lenders do not allow for subordinate financing, meaning a second deed of trust or a second mortgage on the property, because they would just want they want to know that down payment's coming from an equity partner. Some of them don't care. So that's a conversation when you're talking to a guy like myself that, hey, I'm going to be doing a deal and I got an investor that's going to put that down the down payment. Typically, the way I like to structure that is that they're part of the buyer, because it's just easier on a national level to get financing. as opposed to like, oh, I have no money in the deal, right? Like just to position yourself that no, well, my partner, it's a partner. It's not, I'm not getting a second deed of trust. Not to say that you can't get a second lien on the property because some lenders allow for it, but the majority don't. So what I like to do is to maybe, have their LLC and my LLC as the buyer of the property. And then with the money partner, we have a JV agreement, which is not on which says you're going to get, 30% of the profits for putting up the gap funding, and you don't have to, I'm going to get 70%. And then it's specified out how that agreement works. So some of my friends in the Bay Area that are doing like 20 to 25 flips a year in the Bay Area, which is like, you're talking about 400,000 to $1 million acquisitions prices. So, these guys are making 7 figures flipping houses every year.
Yeah.
I got one guy that he never uses his own money. He always has these profit share agreements. So he borrows 80% or 90% of costs from like a hard money lender. He borrows that what we call gap funding, right? We call it the gap to fill that gap of the purchase of the down payment, carrying costs and other miscellaneous costs that it's going to take, right? Because when I was saying like we'll fund 85% and 100% of rehab, what other costs do we have, guys? Right? We have the 15% down payment. We got another couple grand in closing costs and point fees. Right? You got to pay points on these loans. So we got 15%. So there's probably another 3 or 4% in closing costs. So you almost need 20% down, right? If you're getting 85% with closing costs and prorations for property taxes and all that stuff. Well, on top of that, you got to make a monthly interest only payment to this hard money company or this portfolio lender that made you the loan, right? So how are you going to come up with that $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 payment or whatever it is? So what I do is, I document all these numbers that I'm going to need, and I'm going to then, even if you think you can flip the property in 2 months, it's going to be a 2-month deal, and then it's going to take 30 days to sell. Guys, you always got to take, leverage your risk and say, okay, it's going to be a 4-month deal. So let me kind of run the numbers with like 6 months of interest payments, because let me tell you something.
Would you add in, insurance, utilities, a security system, so on and so forth?
Everything. Yeah. You got to figure out.
Yeah.
I want from this gap funding partner, I want to borrow more than I need because I want it sitting there.
Yeah.
Because the problem is what happens with flippers is they have success. They get 1 or 2 down. They go, oh, this is easy. Then they go out and get 5 at one time. And all of a sudden the market changes. Their 2-month projects turn into 6-month projects. And all of a sudden they're done and they're under, and they foreclose on all the properties.
And it's your worst nightmare. Yeah.
We see that, it's amazing on social media. You see all these people bragging about their successes, but I can tell you what, a lot of these people, have a lot of losses too. A lot of people, it's if it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, and the more and more, I think as American people, we all have the same mentality. Hey, I want to figure out a way to get out of my W-2 job or whatever, right? To create financial freedom, which is great. I just say, do it slow and sure, test your model and then scale from there, but don't scale too quickly.
You made it look easy on TV though.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
They have to. They have to. And you mentioned, so you have to fund, the 20%, and it's an 80%, purchase, 100% of 85% of purchase, 100% of rehab. Is there a minimum purchase price though? That's the key. I've seen some people come in with, well, this house is $10,000.
Yeah,
but it needs $100,000 rehab.
Right?
It's worth $190.
It needs a bobcat to push it over.
A lopsided deal, and
right.
Shoot me in the back for being a great negotiator. This is kind of what I've always said, right?
Yeah. So that's a perfect example of a deal that you're not going to get funding for unless it's like a local hard money person. That's like a guy with a lot of money and he lends on deals like that. but like from a national standpoint, they don't make loans like that. So anything, most of the lenders out there, like the national lenders that are lending like all over and doing a lot of volume, they want an asset that's worth as is about minimum like 75,000. So they're not doing the smaller stuff. So for the smaller stuff,
Yeah.
you're looking for a localized hard money guy, or you're looking to do what I did, which is build a financial friend network. So you
I
go on a,
love that. You said that earlier. Financial friend, FFN.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Hey,
borrowed that
Justin,
from,
I'll call you later.
All right, dude.
I borrowed that from one of my investor friends, but I follow the same concept. So, there's trillions of dollars in retirement accounts. And so let's say I worked at a W-2 job. I left that job and I had 100 grand sitting in a 401k. Well, most people don't know now that I'm self-employed that I can roll that into a self-directed vehicle. And so it's not doing shit over there, but I roll it into this self-directed vehicle. And that money now could be my lender partner. So the more people you talk to that have retirement and you tell them what you're doing, they know, like, and trust you, maybe they're a future lending partner. And then instead of paying some hedge fund the 10% interest, I'd much rather pay Justin 10% because, he's just a normal guy, trying to grow his wealth, right?
Yeah.
So it's a way where we can be the bank and get around the bank if at all possible, right? Because the advantage of private money versus hard money is private money, you can make up whatever terms you want that's agreeable upon the parties. And that's key,
Yeah.
right? If we
Yeah.
can.
And finding a money partner, a big part of that is having a good deal, right?
Mhm.
Like like what you're talking about, where the purchase price isn't, it's not in the war zone. It's in a nice blue collar neighborhood, 3-bedroom, 1.5, 2 baths with a 2-car garage attached. This is going to go, this is a pretty bread and butter deal, like at least in my area. It's easier to find guys to go in on something like that than something that's not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with money that don't have the
Yeah.
time or experience. So even if you're new, but you can document what you're going to do. Here's a property that I can buy for $50,000. Here's a detailed line item budget that I've had 2 contractors go out and quote me on. And here's 3 comps that just sold, right next door. And here's their timeline. And so we're going to buy for 50, we're going to put in 20, and then it's worth 160 grand or 150 grand. My plan at that point is to refinance it with a conventional loan or whatever and keep it, or my plan is to sell it. And, here's kind of, the profit in it that I think will be achievable. And I'm looking for somebody to fund the down payment, the carrying costs of this transaction. I have a loan with ABC Hard Money Fund to cover and I'm looking for a partner to lend $30,000 on this deal. And, I can pay you. The way I prefer to do it is I pay you 10% in 2 points, and you're just like Bank of America, but you're a private money partner on the deal. Or you can get a percentage of the profit. Like, you can negotiate how you want to structure that with him, right? Or her.
Sure.
That's all negotiable. Maybe it's just a straight profit deal. Maybe it's just a straight interest rate deal where I'm paying them 10% on their money, right? And then, you've kind of nipped everything in the butt because it's not rocket science. Like, show me the comps, tell me why these
Right.
comps are the best comps. And the lender's probably going to be savvy enough to go on Zillow or something like that to go, hey, okay, this is a 3-2 and everything is, I'm comparing apples to apples. The neighborhood seems similar. The comps are in check, and they'll lend you the money. Most of the investors out there that I've worked with in the past don't even really check my comps or anything. They already like me, so they're going to lend me money and they trust me, which isn't the best way necessarily. But if you're starting out with nobody that likes you right now, you're gonna have to do it a
Don't
different
know
way.
anyone.
Nobody
And also,
likes me.
I've been in real estate
Well, that's
for a long time too. So, you got to build it over time. You're not
well,
going to
that's
go
the
out.
thing too.
Yeah. You can
Yeah,
get yeah
that's true.
yeah
That, I was gonna mention too, like if you know the more deals that you've done, obviously the more track record, they know you're not going to get into a bad deal, you know, if at all possible. So you're going to do your homework, and if they've had,
Yeah.
especially if they've done some, you know, so that's probably why they don't have to babysit their money as much. Is it's kind of what you just mentioned.
yeah. I mean, if you do enough deals, you're probably going to do bad deals. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think if you've never done a bad deal, it's probably because you haven't done enough deals. Um, or yeah. I mean, even the best of the best get their ass handed to them sometimes, right? So you just gotta when you least expect it. And what I find, it's usually people get lose when they do something out of their comfort zone. So like I was telling you about my 7-figure friends that are flipping, you know, if they stick with like the kind of cookie cutter type house, you know,
yeah.
whatever price range that is,
Yeah.
but it's when they go into like they do one that's out of maybe it's like 30 minutes out, but and it's a luxury home, and they're thinking, oh, I see the comps. But the luxury home market is a different beast because, you know, just because the square footage is there against those other comps, what about the view? What about the lots? What, you know, so I've seen people lose 6 figures on deals doing stuff like that. So personally,
Ouch.
I like the cookie cutter deals because they're lower profit margins, but they're also safer and they're more predictable.
Spread out your
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
Say that again, Steve.
I said you can spread out your risk.
Yes.
I've got a question for Beau. Hey, great information, man.
Thank you.
I've got a stack of mortgages that I'm holding on properties that I've sold, and I want to know if this platform you're putting together does anything with like hypothecations.
No, but I have somebody I can refer you to that you might want to talk to.
Cool.
Yeah. And
Very
where are
cool.
you on the East Coast?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. The properties are in Alabama and Florida.
Yeah. So did you own the property then sell them on terms, or how do
That's
you?
what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I want to do in Indiana too. I haven't done it yet, but it's been on my mind because like it's weird that you can find these houses for 9, 15, 20 grand, right? And you're wondering why people can't buy them, but it's they just they figured like they can't get the funding or for whatever. So you know, I love that model because like for example, I bought this house for $9,600 in Indiana. I put in 5 to fix it up, but I was like, I'm renting it out for 630 a month. But I'm like, what if I would have just sold it on terms for 39,900,
Well,
right? And then then they're responsible for all the utilities and everything and the property. So I'm not responsible for that anymore. So yeah, I mean, I love the Steve, I love the business model because I think like that is where I want to go and bring my business to. You know, as far as my own investing on those kind of smaller Midwest type deals that I'm doing, because it's kind of a no
It's the
brainer.
highest return. Yeah, you
Yeah,
get the highest returns on your money passively, of course. So I agree. I
if
agree. So
you're going to
you
hold the
bought that?
mortgage, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're going to hold the
So you bought
mortgages
it for
on these
like
properties, I price the properties as I don't care what the market is. I price the properties according with what the rent's going to be. On the average, if I've got a house, let's say I don't know Indiana from anything, but if I had a house in Indiana and the rents there was $600 a month, that to me is a $55 to $60,000 house. And I just make sure my done payment to my consumer is just a little bit less or right about
then
where
rent.
the rents are, and they're
Yes.
happy to buy it. And I'm not really concerned with. There's not going to go out and refinance it tomorrow. So, and as time goes on, you see even the stuff that I did in Alabama 5 years ago. What I sold those houses for has creeped up and over what the values are now. So I mean, that's how I price all my seller finance deals.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
great. So yeah, I mean, I think like Steve, what I've seen people do in your shoes is they sell off a part of their note, they keep the tail of the note. That model works really well. That's what I
So
would be doing.
partials. Yeah.
Partials, yes.
Yeah.
So they do
Marsh.
like an 80-20, like they'll do a first and a second, something like that.
Well, they sell out in notes. They'll sell off like the first 100 payments to an investor. So, yeah. So like, and then basically Steve would get all his money back, but he'd still have 40 payments. Once the 100 payments were due, he had, payment 101 to 140, right? So, and
Wow.
then he sold off that part. So all his money is back, and now
Wow.
he's building cash flow. A lot of the guys are doing them in their IRAs too. So all that money coming back is in their IRAs.
If you're looking to grow, and run, that's great. I'm at the point where I want the cash flow. So what I'm looking to do is post a bunch of mortgages and borrow against them and take out. I've wrapped all these mortgages. I'll take out my private money that's up front, and I want to get them all paid off, and then just hypothecate and pay it all off over time. That's what I'm looking to get.
Yeah. I think that's a good model. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think cash flow is king, and I like that model because the only problem that I do see with that model is if you have to take the property back. In some states, if they've paid in over that, a judicial state, the foreclosure process will take a while. But other than that, I think it's a great business model.
I do it in non-judicial states for the most part. Now, I just did a foreclosure in Alabama, and the attorney I had doing it dragged his feet. It took 5 months to get this thing done. But you know what was horrible about this whole thing is I went ahead, spent about $4,000 putting the house back in shape. I had sold it for, I think it was $70,000. I collected payments on it for 2 years and got $6,000 or $7,000 down up front. Not a lot of money, but when you add all this up, now I just sold the house again for $83,000 and took back $10,000 down. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
And but you know what? The whole thing is a lot of the key to this is doing business in non-judicial states. Is Indiana a judicial state?
Yeah, it's a judicial state. That's the downfall.
Brutal.
Are you guys getting one hell of an education this morning? Everybody in here listening? This is incredible, isn't it? How many in here? I know everybody's got their cameras off and mics muted, but I'm curious as to how many people in here are interested in growing their business to this level where you're doing fixing and flipping and maybe this seller finance. Yeah, sure.
To Steve's point about the judicial foreclosures, I'm looking into getting into the pre-foreclosures in New Jersey, and you can go there. People been in foreclosure for like 2.5 years and no sale date. 2.5 years, no sale date, not making a mortgage payment. And that's
wild.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. It's not uncommon.
Wow. Man, can you imagine what their loan balance is though at this point? That's insane. That's all great. No. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
I was gonna say that, and that's huge. So, Beau, what I mean, where are you going right now, today, and where do you want to take it?
Sure. So, I'm really focused on my commercial lending business. I wanted to learn how to get in and do a lot bigger lending deals.
Can you share with us a little bit about that too? Because there's a lot of people that want to get into multifamily investing other than just single family residence. And there's a lot of information out there, of course. Can you give us kind of where we would start if we were interested in multifamily?
Yeah. And just to add to that, we've not really had a lot of guests on the show that have talked about commercial, in general. So this is definitely great information. We'd love to.
Huge.
Kind of have you go over all that. I don't know how much time we got today, but I'm sure it's a whole a seminar. But yeah, I'm excited. This is kind of where I want to be, essentially moving forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So essentially, once you move up and you buy a property that's 5 units or greater in the multifamily space, that's considered a commercial loan, right? 1 to 4 is still residential. So let's say you found an 8-plex that you want to buy. You got to kind of learn the debt, the lingo. So there's something called debt service coverage ratio,
Mm.
and so that's a term you want to learn. You want to learn the term T12, which is trailing 12 months profit and loss. So when we're and then the borrowers are now called sponsors when you get into the big multifamily space. They're not a borrower, they're a sponsor. Just it's this the lingo.
Interesting.
But essentially, the first way you size up a deal, meaning like as a lender, what I look for is we take the rents and the expenses and we figure out, with the new debt, what the debt service coverage ratio is. It's kind of like the 1% rule for real estate investors. So they basically what the debt service coverage ratio is that the income is going to pay the debt at least by 125%, typically is what they're looking for. So like if your income on the property was not going to pay your debt, is that a good deal? Not for a stabilized loan, right? Because it wouldn't cover itself. However, there's something called a bridge loan, and a bridge loan is kind of like a fix and flip loan for multifamily. And a bridge loan will fund portion of the cap in commercial real estate. We call the rehab budget CapEx, capital expenditures. So you can there's loans just like fix and flip loans, except lower leverage. Typically on multifamily, on a bridge loan, you're looking at about 75% loan to cost. So they'll fund about 75% of the cost. Some will go as high as 80, but most of them are around 75% of the total cost. So if you're buying something for $1 million, they could potentially lend 75% of acquisition and 75% of the CapEx or rehab budget on the deal. And then you want to show them a pro forma, which says, once I rehab and fill this 8-unit building up, we're projecting a stabilized value, just like an ARV, but in multifamily, we call it a stabilized value. So
Interesting.
yeah, you can essentially, it's the same thing really. You can burr multifamily properties.
You can. So I guess there's a couple of levels. Of course, there's as is, then there's fixed up and not.
Rats, you cut out there, Michael.
Yes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Mhm.
so you kind of have 3 levels of this, and I guess 3 different valuations. Is that right?
Yeah.
As
So
is,
mhm.
partially, in rehab but not rented, and stabilized, which is fully rented. I've got all my leases in hand. Everything is good. Cash flow.
Yeah. So it's essentially unstabilized and stabilized in the commercial world. Yeah. And so when we're underwriting these
Okay.
deals, we size it up from that standpoint. Then what's the play of the property? What's the strategy? And then, so sometimes they go bridge and they just flip it, or sometimes they go bridge and they do an agency refinance with Fannie or Freddie. They're lending agencies on multifamily, or sometimes they go into a HUD. If it's a big enough deal, there's FHA HUD loans for big multifamily, or it's bank debt. So when we intake a deal, we look at like what's the occupancy level, what's the sponsor's net worth, what's their experience. So what you would start wanting to do is you want to put together a professional PFS or personal financial statement. Your assets and liabilities, essentially what a personal financial statement is. And then attached to that, you should have a schedule of real estate owned. And then a brief resume about your real estate experience. So like if you were to go buy a stabilized property, meaning the occupancy levels 90% or better, let's say it's a 100-unit building. For Fannie and Freddie, the sponsorships team, it could be Justin and Michael and I are the sponsors of this property. Our net worth would have to be equal to or greater than the loan amount to get qualify for agency debt. So that's why in multifamily they put together, some people do what's called a syndication and they raise money, and there's general partners, limited partners. But we're going to just talk about mom and pop type acquisitions today, because that's where the distressed is. Like if you're looking for distressed opportunities over the next 12, 24 months because of COVID, you're looking at the 5 to 30, 40 unit properties that are going to be distressed, because those are the ones that are run by mom and pops. And really the people that are getting, if you look at like this PPP and EDI, whatever it is, right? The money's going to people that don't really need the money, which is kind of funny. I mean, it's not funny, it's sad, right?
Yeah.
That a lot of my successful contacts, their companies are getting funded, like, and they're profitable still. It just doesn't make sense, right? Like we're like kind of like the lower economic areas. What's $600 going to do for them? Nothing. So that's where you're going to see the stress in the market in those markets, right? So you're going to see these, then you're going to see the mom and pop that, you know, all they own is this 8 unit and they're getting ready to retire, and they're losing tenants. They can't manage it. Those are the opportunities, I think, over the next 12, 24 months. So knowing how to buy these properties is probably a good thing. And you know, I think it's good to work your way up from owning fourplexes and duplexes to start getting into the commercial space, because that's an easier way to scale. But I just think it's, you know, it's another component of learning, because you want to know if this 8 unit building, is it shared utilities? Who's paying the utilities? Can you put it on a RUB system, meaning you separate the utilities, because you don't want to pay the utilities, right? I know that any of you that own these duplexes, triplexes, or fourplex, and you pay some of the expenses because they're not, you understand that you know, like it sucks, it kills your cash flow sometimes. So
and for the folks here too, I understand what that means, but talk about what RUB's system is and what is the difference between that and separate metering, I guess.
Sure.
Is kind of the idea.
So essentially, I'm not an expert in this, but I'll just kind of break it down in layman's terms, because that's how so essentially if there is only one meter, the RUB system basically is a system. You get like a kind of a third party report that breaks down what each unit should pay on the utility bill. So instead of you paying the utility bill, you start billing each of those 8 tenants in the building. And it's a great way to increase cash flow, because commercial and multifamily property is valued not on comms, but it's valued on, you know, the income of the property, right? Because that's how you instead of like, my 8 unit building should sell for this, it's really, no, it should sell for this because of, you know, what the income is on the property. And so you can actually force appreciation into commercial real estate a lot faster than you can into single family flips, right? Because you can, it's really an income and expenses thing.
So what you're saying is, if I have 2 identical buildings, 2 separate owners, one's charging only $500 a month, the other's charging $1,000. Essentially, this guy on the right with $1,000, his building is worth twice as much.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference, because, you know, people will pay more because they know they can get it to 1,000. So yeah, I mean, value add investors, if you're a value add investor, which is most people buy stuff that they want to raise the value. Now, when you're like a hedge fund or a REIT, they buy stabilized assets because they have so much of other people's money. But when you're trying to come up in the world of real estate, you got to do value add plays, meaning you're buying, like, we classify commercial property as A class, B class, and C class and D class. Just like you could do the same thing in residential neighborhoods. But that's really like an A class building is in a great market, you know, newer construction, versus a C class property was built in 1964 and it's flat roof, things like that. But I think that's a really good, you know, play to be in, is in that. And actually, surprisingly, I'm like, being on the lending side, I'm seeing a lot of people picking up like 9 unit buildings for like 500 grand. The only downfall for smaller sub $1 million deals on multifamily is the financing is a little bit more challenging too. But that's
so
why.
wait a minute. It's easier over $1 million.
Yes.
Boom.
Most banks don't want to make small loans, right? right? Because they got to do a commercial appraisal. But I got a guy buying a 9-unit building right now for 550 in Florida, and I found him a credit union that's going to fund. They're funding 75% of the purchase price. It's a stabilized asset. They're funding 75% of the purchase price at 4%, 25-year amortization. So credit unions and banks, sometimes the downfall is that their amortization is only like 20 or 25 years, because the longer it's amortized, right, the smaller the payment is, and so you cash flow more, just so you kind of give you some perspective. But we have all sorts of loans, bridge loans and bank loans and credit union loans. So that's what I do all day, is I figure out and build relationships with banks and credit unions to figure out how to fund these deals. And it's a lot of work. I probably, to be honest with you, sometimes seeing some of these wholesalers that are crushing it, and to see about the amount of work I'm doing to close one of these loans and the commission I get, I go, there's a better way, right? There's always a better way to figure out, like, what do you really want to do with your life, right? Like, that's the key. I mean, lending is fun, but I started working on bigger deals where the paydays could be as high as a 6-figure payday, but they take a lot of work, and it's frustrating. But in between that, I also have my little deals, right? I do my $1 million, my $500,000 loans. I help people.
Sure.
I help people flip $100,000 deals, right? I don't care. It's all about building relationships. In anything we do, all this is networking, building relationships, gathering information from others, and then executing. The last piece, or the most important piece, is executing. Like, we can learn all this stuff, but if we never do it, it's worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's a good
That's
place?
awesome.
Do you have a course, Beau, or what services can we plug into today?
Yeah. So you can go to beaueckstein.com, just my first and last name.com. And you can,
Okay.
from there, you can find my podcast, you can find my webinar, you can find my Facebook groups. I don't have a course. I have a podcast. You can also go to investorfinancingpodcast.com. Please like it on YouTube. But all I do is just talk about financing, mostly.
Great.
And sometimes I'll bring an investor or two on, and then,
It's a good place to learn the lingo, right? And kind of start. It's a different way of thinking, but it's very much related to what we're used to with the single family residence. That's what you were saying, right?
exactly. It's once you really look at it, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit different lingo. And it's a bigger play. One of my good friends, I host a show on Friday, live stream on Fridays, with a guy named Vinny Chopra, and he owns, he has $400 million of multifamily properties under management, and
Wow.
he syndicates real estate. So he got really good at raising money. He just raises money. He can raise $5 million overnight. And like, when you get to that level, it's good. See, yeah, I don't necessarily, I shouldn't say I don't want to be that big, but for me, it's more of lifestyle. I want the lifestyle. I want what I call the flip-flop lifestyle. And I hope,
Yeah.
I want to I want to be able to carry my laptop and go to Mexico and conduct my business, not report to anybody. I want my virtual assistants in the Philippines to run the business. I want a bookkeeper, so and I don't need millions, right? So what is your cash flow number? I guess this is the kind of piece of advice that I am working on for myself. Add up all your expenses. What's your monthly outgo combined? What do you need to do to start getting net passive cash flow through your rental properties to get you where that it cost me $7,000 a month to live? I get 7 month of net passive income. And then the next level is to get to the 200. Once you do that, we call you a 100%er, meaning you can quit your W-2 job because you can basically survive off your net income. But really, the goal is to become a 200%er or 300%er, where you have enough rental income coming in where you don't have to do anything else. And you get good bookkeepers, good CPAs, so you don't have to get frustrated. You don't have to have a messy desk, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what is that number for you? Is it 10 grand a month? Is it 20 grand? Is it 30? Is it 40 grand a month? And that, when you really look at it, if 10 grand a month is your kind of like quit your W-2 job, that could be one multifamily property. So it could be one portfolio by these, finding these landlords, right, that own like 20 properties and 30 properties, and now they're all stressed out because they're not getting paid rent. I just saw a guy do one in Indiana. He got with $10,000 down, he bought 23 houses in South Bend, Indiana, on an owner carry
Look at
deal,
that.
because the landlord didn't want to deal with it, right? And the landlord's like, I don't want to take the money anyways and sell them off and hassle with it. You just make me a payment of this and I'm done, right? So I think that's a good opportunity too in these kind of smaller, lower price point markets.
Bingo. Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
think about where, you know, the level of where everyone is at too. You know, this guy's probably got more money than he knows what to do with, so he doesn't care to have that extra money necessarily in his bank. So if someone just makes him a payment and he's good, right? You know, who cares?
Yeah, it's like one of those guys that's like, what would I do with the money?
Yeah.
Right. Like I already play golf every time I want to. Like it's just going to create a tax problem for me. You know?
Exactly. And so installment sales, right? That's another good, you just brought a great point up. When you're talking like to these sellers, hey, will you seller finance this? Because like you can take, you know, you can take this, but you're going to get hit on taxes this year. But if you sell it on an installment sale, you're only paying tax on that, what you got paid out that year, essentially, right? Check with your CPA. But so that's kind of like the deals I want to work on going forward too.
Oh, yeah.
Like where I don't have to put any of my own capital. I mean, if you can do deals without putting capital into it, what's your return? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, infinite.
Right.
Ooh, I'd like one of those every day.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
An infinite return. But then, you know, even getting 10, 20, 30% on these owner carry deals, I mean, if they just really look at it that way, that's a slam dunk for everyone, you know, because they've got too much they don't know what to do with.
Or they don't want to deal with it, right?
What's normal? You know, like 8%, would that be out of range?
You know, I've taken a ton of classes. I used to go like every weekend. I'm so into like the whole real estate thing for a while. I kind of went through the whole like just educate myself and just listen to everybody. I really liked, more or less, I like to be around like-minded entrepreneurs. So I'd go to events, and plus it was a good reason. When I wasn't married, I'd just go and like I could go to San Diego and go to a 3-day event, right? And like hang out at a hotel, network with people, talk business, potentially get some loans for my day job. But I've gone to a lot of like seminars and different things and learned from some of the kind of like the old school real estate guys. But yeah, I think everything's a negotiation. A lot of people negotiate deals like, okay, I'll pay your price and I'll make you payments of X. And they're doing deals where they're not even paying a minimum interest, right? They're just making a payment deal.
Principal only? You mean like a 0%?
Yeah. People do deals, or they're paying them like okay, I'll pay, you want 100 grand, like I was going to pay you 70 grand. I'll do your 100 grand, but you got to I'm going to pay you, 200 payments at X, right? So like, I think I'm not a whiz like a lot of guys I know that do that kind of stuff. Like I got a guy in Jackson, Mississippi that's really knowledgeable, and they do that kind of stuff all day long.
Well, think about it. You know, some of these sellers, especially if they're landlords, right? They gotta, it's just one more thing. So if you come to them as an investor, that go-between can be like the insurance. You know, I don't have to deal with John Smith, the renter. I can deal with Beau, who, you know, if I have a vacancy, Beau's going to step in. He's going to clean the property up. He's going to do all these things. I don't get that with a property manager. You know, I have someone here that's willing to share the, expenses and all of that, and I just get a flat monthly fee and I don't have to think about it. That sounds like a great deal.
I mean,
I would rather do that, as a, let's say I was a landlord, I would rather do that personally. I don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, that's why people, that's why people, they're letting people master lease their property, and then those people are running an Airbnb business, right? Because they just want, hey, if I can get a little bit more and have somebody else run the business, that's fine with me. But yeah, there's lots of ways to make money. And my buddy, listen to this. My buddy just bought a property in downtown Scottsdale, Arizona. which is like right by all the bars. It's good, like it's really good nightlife there. And he bought it for something like 500 grand, and he got 30-year fixed rate loan on it. He had to put down. He has some cash, so he put it down. But he's running an Airbnb out of it. He bought it furnished too because it was an Airbnb, and he's been showing me how much he's making on this property. This one property is going to net him probably 50 grand a year now. Net him 50 grand a year. And I think he only put down
Well,
90 grand. So he's going to get all his money back in 2 years and have a cash flowing asset. So his all-in expenses are
that's great.
all-in expenses are $2,800 a month. Some months he's booking $13,000 in fees.
Well,
One
look at
house.
it this way. If let's go back to your example before, the 8-unit guy, right? I don't necessarily want to take the time and learn that business model. If I can just say, hey, Beau, I've got 8 units here. Let's work out a deal. I'll let you lease all of them. I don't care. As long as I get what I need, I want you to make money. I want you to be profitable, because if you're not, the lease isn't going to work out, and we don't have a deal. But if you're making money, I'm making what I need to make, then who cares? I'm fine with it. That's a great opportunity, for
It's
really
huge.
all parties. I love it. I love it.
That is
You just
that
got
is
my mind open,
that is some sexy techniques right there. I was thinking, man, that's the technique that I fell in love with watching the infomercials back in the 1990s.
Good old
And
Tom Vu.
yeah, and I was like, dude, that's what I want to do. And it's funny that I've never tried it. I've never really tried it. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, dude, why am I not trying that? That's the
Yeah.
coolest. That's the coolest.
Well,
Yeah.
well, look at it this way, just to add to that, let's say I get a seller finance deal. I got to put 5 grand down, right? House doesn't necessarily, and it's in a city that Airbnb is fine with. My monthly payment might be $850 a month, rent's $1,200. I go to someone that's an Airbnb investor, they're happy to pay it, and because they'll make $2,400, they make their money, I make my spread I need, and I'm in it for 5 grand, and I maybe got a deposit, first month's rent deposit, maybe last month's rent from the investor. I'm okay with that. If I wanted to keep it, I could even lease option it to him. So yeah, there's lots of things you could do with that. That's great.
Yeah, that's great. The whole seller finance concept is awesome, but the nowadays adding the Airbnb, that's incredible too. It's a double whammy.
Yeah, I think the point of that too is when I'm talking about that investor I was just talking about, that was actually his first investment, this Airbnb, and he was studying multifamily and he was getting frustrated because he felt frustrated because he hadn't bought any multifamily, and he was like, I just want to get to 10 grand a month cash flow, and now he's actually buying another property up by a lake, and those 2 properties right there will give him 10 grand a month cash flow.
Yeah,
So
there's his pension right there. Retired.
yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And so just to put that in the back of your mind, it's not how many units you own, it's what's your cash flow. At the end of the day, what's the cash flow?
That's right.
You could have, 20 doors that pay you $100 a month, which, right, a door, right? So it's barely any, right? Versus
Right.
I own 3 doors that are paying me 6 grand each or 4 grand each. So
Mhm.
just in perspective, right? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
And
Exactly.
partnerships too, like, because I could go and just say, hey, to the Airbnb investor, and just have them do that deal. I've seen some where they've done like profit sharing too. So it doesn't have to just be a flat. Sometimes they're even open to a profit share deal. And I don't know what that would look like I've not studied that up enough to be able to educate people on that, but it's just another thing to look into, if you want to maximize your profits. So
Yeah.
But
We've
either
been-
way, it's a win-win.
Mhm. We've been going for a little over an hour here, guys. I don't know. I don't want to keep Beau too long today. Overstay my welcome. I don't want to do that, but I do, if he's open to it, I want to open up the floor for any questions. We've had almost 30 people with us, as far as I can tell, in the Zoom room, plus YouTube and some other places here this morning. Thank you, everybody that's been with us, following along.
Yeah.
You're the reason why we do this. So if you've got questions, Zoom room, right here, you're in the Zoom room or on the chat somewhere. Beau, if you got a couple minutes,
Sure.
for
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything about this stuff? We've talked about a various a smorgasbord of topics here, but they've all been very delicious. Anybody got a question or comments?
Yeah, you said that the mom and pop multifamily you think is going to be one of your targets this 2021?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's not just not my target, but I just think that in general, I think the opportunity in that asset class is going to be very prevalent because of those type of buildings are the ones that have the tenants that are getting hit and aren't working, they're not paying rents. So means the properties are distressed and they're not cash flowing the way they should. So I think there's opportunities to buy those and run them correctly, put in new tenants, renovate the properties. Yeah, I think there's opportunity. I think there's always opportunity whether the market goes up or down. I think we're due for some kind of a slowdown in the market. Although I've been saying that for a while, which is hard to imagine. The market's cyclical, and I think that properties can't keep appreciating like in some of the markets the way they are. Like markets like Austin, even though you got Tesla moving there, at some point, and we have all time. The rates help too, right? Because people can get cheap money, but at some point, it's going to slow. And
Yeah, I just put a property under contract, and it's in Beirut, and the property next
Amazing. I
the
love it.
property next door to it went on the market in November for $55,000, and somebody paid $65,000 for it. Now, this is Beirut now. This is in Camden, New Jersey. Beirut.
yeah,
It's crazy out there right now, man. Crazy.
yeah. So I personally think that there's going to be all these people that overpaid for properties, right? As there's comps, it's okay. FHA's when it's a first time home buyer, they're getting an FHA loan at 97.5% of the value. So they only have to come in with 3%, right? When the market drops down and now that $300 or $100,000 house is only worth $80,000 and they're relocating.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do a short sale. They're going to have to sell it subject to, right? They're going to have to let it go. So I think those kind of opportunities, I don't think we'll see as bad of a foreclosure market in a long time like we did in 2008, 9, 10. I mean, that was historically just devastating. I mean, property values in many areas, like in Vegas, there's some markets, some pockets here that went down like 60%, 70%, that wiped out so many people. I don't think we're going to get bad like that, but I do think, I mean, look at all these businesses, like retail businesses, like they're going to be, look at like the motels, developers are starting to convert offices and malls that are outdated into like multifamily now. I think you're going to see trends like that, right? Like that's the kind of development financing we do. Because we're doing a lot of that. We call that adaptive reuse. You're going to see that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I think the first rate bump up, I think the party's over with. The first rate, the first time the rates go up, I think the party will be over with.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, what I bought here that I paid this house, it's like 2,800 square feet. I paid 380,000 for it. Where I lived in California, the same house would sell for 1.3 million.
Yeah.
Yes, that kind of reminds me of New Jersey because you could start at the bottom of New Jersey and you have like a $175,000 house in deep South Jersey, you move a little up that same particular house to be about 225, 250. You move up into central, almost northern New Jersey, it'll be almost 350. And if you get even closer to New York City, the same house will probably be about at least $500,000.
Yeah, my
Wow.
whole family's
Pretty
from New
crazy.
Jersey.
Yeah.
My family's from I have some family in Point Pleasant Beach.
Okay. Okay.
My grandpa used to work, he was a professor at in Newark, New Jersey, at one of the New Jersey Technical
Oh,
Institute. Yeah.
Newark has $1,800 bedroom apartments for you now.
All right.
Has anybody ever told you that you reminded them of Vin Diesel?
Yeah, all the time. Somebody said Bruce Willis yesterday.
What?
Yeah, he said, but I get Vin Diesel. Then they say my voice is like Vin Diesel. I said that's not a
Yeah,
bad thing.
yeah,
You
that's
know,
cool.
he's got, you know.
Well, guys, when searching on Zillow, like looking for houses, I noticed that most of the houses on there is it's overpriced. Once I go to PropStream and check the prices for what they're listed for, a lot of houses overpriced. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, most investors out there aren't buying MLS deals. Like
Okay.
they're not buying properties on the market. Pretty much nobody does right now. I mean, there's still opportunities once in a while. I used to buy off the MLS back in 2014 when there was, I could cherry pick deals in 2012. But now, you know, everybody's looking for real estate. So the real deals are I mean, wrapping this all together, you can know all the shit I know and still not make any money, right? Because it all comes down, it all comes down to action, right? Like
Sure.
a guy that I really respect, and I know a little. I would say he's not a great contact of mine, but I, you know, have a relationship with him. He's worth over $100 million. He said to a group that we're in a little group, and he said, listen, if you want to do more deals, you have to look at more deals, right? So what that means is like for anybody that's listening, and I'm in the same boat as you, so I'm not trying to put anybody down because I do the same stuff, is that if you want to be a real estate investor, let's just pick your niche, whether it's wholesaling, whether it's flipping. If you're not looking at deals every single day and underwriting them, then you're not going to get any deals, right? You're only going to get the deals that fall in your lap. So just think about that. It's so true, right? So going back to to what Jerry's saying is, yeah, you're going to have to develop a system to find off-market deals. You have to get belly to belly with the best wholesalers in your area that are going to bring you deals if you want to flip properties. Or if you're wholesaling properties, you have to be that. What you need to get good at doing is finding off-market deals and contacting sellers directly. Because, you know, so so Jerry, what's your goal with real estate?
My goal, um, I concentrated like in 2020 more like lease options. Okay. 2021, I want to concentrate on wholesaling.
Okay.
Okay. So possibly fix and flips. I'm going to look into doing this year also.
Okay. So I would be reaching out to investor-friendly real estate agents. I'd be figuring out how to go direct to sellers. Like, have you done any direct to seller stuff? Because if if you're a wholesaler, you're not going to really wholesale that many deals right off the MLS, and some MLSs don't allow for it. Some states don't allow for it. But so I guess the point is that you have to go direct and be like, your whole business is not about learning the strategies. It's really learning the strategies of finding motivated sellers. And so that's either cold calling them, sending them mail, creating lead generation websites, or pay per click. Like if you jump on a lot of these wholesaling, you know, calls, right? That's how they're making money, is finding the deal and then locking that deal up and then having a network of people in Jersey or wherever you're from that you can just assign the contract to. So
Okay.
yeah, that's where I would focus, is the lead. That's the most important thing. And that's where we all fail. Most 99% of the investors fail at this part.
So true.
Like what Gary Vaynerchuk says is like, we're not like, my loan business isn't like about doing loans. I'm a media company. Like, so the more of these podcasts I get on and shows and network, like if I do this every day and I get, a year down the road, somebody's watching this YouTube video and then they call me, right?
Yep.
So I think it's about building
Free
these
advertising.
relationships.
It's a free billboard, basically. And it's the more that you do, I agree. One of the things, the last show that we did last week, this is kind of a niche that I've been getting into, is I will basically find long day on market properties, and I will actually approach the agent and I'll negotiate a terms deal, through the agent. Of course, I got to guide them through it and kind of see what they understand, and if they don't, I give them a quick education and see if there's a fit. So sometimes you can go right on the MLS, like you mentioned.
Sometimes bank-owned properties on the MLS are okay too. I've done a bunch of bank-owned properties.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Yeah. As a straight wholesale, you mean, Justin?
Yeah, as straight ugly house wholesaler. Yeah.
That's
so the only downside is sometimes you have to double escrow close.
Right.
A lot.
yeah. You gotta double close, but or you could sell the LLC, I guess.
But you find a good guy that's a money partner, okay, to do the transactional funding, and that guy also becomes the number one prospect for your money partner for your fix and flip deal that Beau was talking about. Think about that.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Yep.
And to add on that, I think it's market to market. I mean, some markets, they have a boatload of foreclosure inventory all the time. Some
That's
markets,
true too.
like Jerry's market probably does. But
I'm I'm down about Tampa,
in Tampa.
right outside of Tampa, a town called Riverview.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's one of the hottest markets. You're not, but what I have seen people do is they create a, they have a system for just MLS, right? So they set up a search within the MLS. Anything realtors can set you up, because I've been licensed. I've used the MLS a long time. They can set you up for certain keyword searches. So like it could be like fire damage, it could be, probate, and then you just filter these deals. So you're just getting those emails from a good realtor in the area, and then you quickly underwrite those deals each day. You quickly, right? And then you might make an offer. You might find one and say, okay, I can offer X based on my formula. You make offers. And usually the MLS offer system works the best, not on your first offer, because usually it's an investor offer. They're not going to take it. But then you have a system for following up, because a lot of times as the market isn't as hot and transitioning into a normalized market, what happens 45 days down the road when the original buyer's loan falls out and now they're due to close on another property, right? That's when so the guys that are successful with that model are following up. They have a follow-up system from their MLS offering system. So they have a system, and that's what I've always sucked at, is creating systems, but that's everyone I know that's successful has a system to run their business.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on now. Like I have 2 virtual assistants in the Philippines that work for me full time. And
nice.
We create SOPs, standard operate. So creating systems. So like if I were just doing I could have a virtual assistant do an offering system, right? Like that's what just straight real estate investors are doing with their VAs, is they're having them do transaction coordination, but also offering systems. They're going on Zillow and they're making 100 offers a day or whatever it is. Right?
Oh yeah. That'd be incredible. I was thinking 50 a day would be stretching it,
Well, I think I was exaggerating that a little bit, but yeah, the power of a VA is amazing. I highly recommend, if you're doing deals right now, or if you want to ramp up anything in your life, it doesn't necessarily, it could be your day job or whatever, but to leverage a virtual assistant, get a good virtual assistant for $3 or $4 an hour. And it'll help you leverage these marketing tasks. Obviously, if you're new and you don't want to spend money, it's probably not a good time. But maybe after you get your first win, you get your first VA.
Yeah, it's great. It's great advice. Great advice. Any other questions here in the Zoom room before we let Beau go?
You're a poet. You're a poet.
Anything else, folks? It's been a blessing to have him here, man. Thank you so much. It's awesome to get your atmosphere and your knowledge for like the last hour and a half. Dude, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed talking about myself for an hour. Great. Good way to start my Saturday.
We'd love to have you back sometime to talk more about yourself.
Sure. I'd love to. Anytime. Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. I'm realestatewholesaler'sclub.com. If you want to check me out, Justin Chamness. Everybody that's watching out there, thank you so much. Thanks again, Beau and Jerry, Mark, Michael, Vernon, Anthony, Aaron, Charles, David, Jaime, Rick, Sandra, and there's a lot of others that I missed. So thank you, and we'll see you next week, guys. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
Stay safe, stay healthy this weekend. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, Beau.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Beau. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks.